Welcome back to the daily vent. I think my mic may be having some noise issues slightly, although could be wrong. It seems like the noise floor is a little bit higher, so that's if you hear a little buzzing, that's related to that. I ordered another mic. When that comes in, hopefully everything will be better. I could use a different mic solution, but the sound isn't necessarily as bassy, or maybe you could use the word full compared to this one here. And etc. other reasons for etc. other mics, whatever. So today we are going to, I'm going to react to Sam Hyde's video to Elon, or Dear Elon, and we're going to see what he has to say. I've only seen a little bit of it so far because I watched a video that the Quartering did about this stuff, and so I've only seen maybe a few minutes or so worth. So we're just gonna watch it.
Glad I caught you.
So first of all, good start with because I believe when I clicked on this video the other day, I watched far enough to see, probably the first few seconds, several seconds, like maybe 7 or less seconds, and the fact that he opened with like the Minecraft sipping noise is a good touch. Kind of lets you give you a little bit of a vibe of who Sam Hyde is.
Glad I got you there.
That's the last time I'll pause it.
Elon Musk. By the way, please don't watch this if you're not Elon Musk, okay? This is a one-off video that we're doing. This is private, personal. I put this in his email. I don't know how you got this, unless you're on the Asmongold Discord server, in which case you know my every move, okay? Me and Asmongold have been planning this for a while now. Moist Critical's involved, and yeah, I guess if you're on the Moist Critical Discord server, you would have access to this file. So kudos to you, hacker. I don't think Elon's going to watch this.
Good touch listen, with all the different camera angles.
As a comedian, first and foremost, I don't expect people to take me seriously. But it is a fact that shit posting and public opinion are now intermingled permanently, and it's not going anywhere. And that's just the way it is. I get all my news from memes, basically. That's how I get my news. Is that how you get your news? How would you even get the news if you weren't looking at memes? You'd watch a show? That's even more fucking retarded.
So,
turn that off.
Language advised.
It's a smart thermostat, so it's going to take 15 minutes to figure out how that fucking thing works. It's very intuitive. I don't know why the Nest thermostat is taking you so long to learn and intuit. Okay, a toddler could figure this out. A toddler on an iPad could figure out how to use the Nest thermostat. That's Chris Lynch, by the way, Elon. Do not hire him, okay? He's leaving this job very soon. See, he's white. He's too lazy. Chris, you're so lazy and white. Well, yeah. You guys should have studied violin harder as kids. I swear to God, Vivek would have figured this out by now. I want to believe that Elon is one of the great men of our age, and that he has what it takes to become a 21st century Andrew Carnegie. I think it's important to have great men to look up to. Trump, Joe Rogan, oh there it goes, Elon, Tucker, and it's not necessarily important that our great men are perfect, but there are symbols of what we could be. I think if Ron Paul took steroids, he would be number one. That would be the number one guy. You agree? Yeah. I would like to offer you an escape, an exit from this hole you've been digging. You are a beloved figure. Anytime you do anything remotely based, people lose it. Oh my God, he's based! Yo! He just said that woke liberals aren't cool.
The faces, dude.
Based. What does he say?
Who's based? What did he say?
Yeah, anytime you post an AI kitten in a MAGA hat, people lose their, he's based! He's fucking based, man. For the guy who's the free speech
AI art,
guy,
man.
And not only that, but the reasoning from first principles guy, the logical fallacy guy, the Reddit guy, good faith arguing with everybody, whatever. All that shit. Blanket banning groypers, taking away blue checks, changing the algorithm of the site because 100 people ratioed you because there's fucking 50,000 posts. They're all organic, by the way. This is not some Russian bot farm.
True.
It's not.
And it's not
some nefarious behind the scenes. Let's mess with Elon. We're gonna fuck with him. That's not what it is. It's you tapped into a moist critical. You tapped into a moist critical, and we're back to moist critical. Mainline concern for the American people. And you treated it in a way that was glib and dismissive.
Glib.
You just became a Republican 3 months ago, and you're talking about removing a big portion of regular people, root and stem. No. People fucking love you. They will forgive you. Nobody is trying to get you to become turbo base build, full Pat Buchanan immigration policy. People broadly understand that you are a San Francisco, tech, California, international immigrant. Well, if you want to be a regular tech guy, that's fine. You can do that. You can be Larry Ellison. You can go play on the boat. Nobody's going to give a fuck. Realize what you're fighting for. If you're going to be the tech king, if you've courted the MAGA base, you wanted these people on your side. They're ready to be on your side, but you have to fight not for Ben Shapiro's idea of the country of America, the notion of America as this collection of ideas. That's not what it is. It's Americans. That's who you have to fight for. If you're in America, doing business in America, you want to be the man in America, you have to fight for the American people. You're not fighting for a paragraph. You're not fighting for a set of ideas, man. It's the American people who need your help. That's
what ultimately comes down to, right?
I think people are pissed off here.
Country,
and it's an easy fix. Just don't call them retards.
Or idea. But it is also about ideas, right?
Elon, have you met Chris? He's on Asmongold. He's streaming all the time. You should just check him out. He's playing these games and stuff. He's amazing what the kid does with video games. I can't believe it. People didn't suddenly have a flare-up of India hate. I've been monitoring the Indian hate websites for a while. It's actually set to my homepage. I've been checking these websites out. I watch what these people do. There were very few overt Indian haters spewing their nonsensical filth everywhere 72 hours ago. What happened? Okay, 72 hours ago, most people in the MAGA base looked at Vivek Ramaswamy with some notion of admiration, or hey, that guy says cool stuff every once in a while. Hey, you know what? I think I like that guy.
Yeah.
Now he's got to be deported. Sucks, man. And he's not being deported because of the color of his skin. He's being deported for the content of his character. And I think that truly was a mask-off moment where we saw that Vivek Ramaswamy really is just a fucking nerd who needs to go back. I think that what you did is different.
How much of this is him being in character, and how much of it is really what he thinks?
I'm going to spurg out later, okay? On Chris Lynch. And also, Indians do cool stuff every once in a while. They get the chest slapping, wrestling. You guys watch that action movies. He's shooting a bullet out of the air with a gun. He's flipping over the tuk-tuk. Indian clubs, shoulder rehab, exercise, fantastic. The hate. It's irrational hate. It's just racism. It's just a nonsensical racism. The hate and racism and anti-Indian sentiment, it's there to the extent that Indians are being used to replace white people. That's it. We have to stop playing pretend. We're not talking about exceptional Indians here. And that's why this is sort of spreading like wildfire, people sharing these H-1B lists of what the jobs are. You are not in Calcutta scouting for the next Indian Einstein. You're not. We have to make it to outer space and invent new computers. Let's get to India and get the next Nikola Tesla. That's not what's happening. We're talking about people at fucking gas stations. You bring them over, you put them in a fucking gas station, and then we'll go around all the gas stations in the USA and find the next genius. Well, what if he's not in India? What if he's working at a gas station in North Carolina? He might be there. We don't know. Why don't we bring everybody here and then we can look for everybody? That's actually a fucking genius idea. We bring fucking everybody here, and then, like a needle in a haystack, we find the one man who can invent electrical computer. That sounds fucking retarded, and it's not true. You have to at least say that the H-1B program is being scammed. If you don't admit that, then as far as like any type of discussion that goes anywhere is concerned, it's over. It's over.
Yeah, like you should be allowed to like
from Moist Critical himself.
You should be able to like analyze
he was too busy
a program and like if it's got some loopholes or errors or needs some
giving you
quality improvements.
Approved, okay? Nobody's expecting you to go full Steve Bannon here. You're a tech bro. We get it.
Tech bro.
Immigrant. But if you are on Team America, and by Team America, I don't mean Ben Shapiro's collection of ideas. America's not a collection of ideas. America is a people. Americans. If you are
ultimately
Team
in reality at its core,
the most prominent talking points need to be the immediate deportation of illegals and the end of the abuse of the American worker by programs like this H-1B, the gamification of stuff like this that's set up to benefit people who aren't us. Nobody wants to solve the Jap.
I said I wasn't going to pause anymore, but like when you have somebody that says it like that, and if you're being a reasonable person, can you disagree with that? Like, I like Sam, even before he started popping up in the mainstream like this, he's an interesting guy. He's also quite funny, right? I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but he's interesting and he's funny. And there's a certain memery to how he's doing this, and it's unique because normally, like, people don't put this much abrupt humor in a calling out someone style video. So it's kind of a unique thing. Also, the production value is pretty solid on this compared to, like, his normal live stream clips. And, so he makes at least, like, pretty solid arguments.
Japanese birth rate problem by turning Japan into India.
This is a pretty good point. I've heard a little bit about this.
Where you can just change the code and make a Japanese person. I've tried it. It can't be done. In my laboratory, okay, where Asmongold is right now, down in the basement, I have tried over 150 times to turn an Indian into a Japanese man. And the only thing I was able to accomplish was boiling them. If you think, Elon, or Asmongold, if you're watching this, if you think you can turn an Indian person into a Japanese person by boiling them, not going to happen, okay?
No.
Go down to my basement and talk to the 150 Indians that I already tried that on. Doesn't work.
I don't think they'd be talking anymore.
Nobody wants to solve the American birth rate problem. What's going to happen? We're going to run out of people. Oh, the stock prices are going to go down. Oh, that's a problem for the All In podcast to figure out. David Sachs. Sachs of what? Sachs of gold? Just start calling yourself David Sachs of gold. What's the other guy? Jason Sachs? Asmongold? Asmongold. David Sachs should change his name to Asmongold. The branding is already set up for you. Asmongold wants to himself. You can replace his body and become the top streamer in America. I shouldn't say Asmongold wants to himself. I love Asmongold. That guy's classic. He's the ultimate. He's the best streamer. Is he good?
Yeah, watched some of his
I just know
clips.
his name's Asmongold.
He has to know who he is, right?
The only people who want to fix the American birth rate problem by turning America into India are fuckers. People are not interchangeable economic units. If they're not more than that, then that's just an extension of antinatalism. That's just nihilism.
I'm not familiar with that term.
People don't matter. Neil
Nihilism,
deGrasse Tyson, the universe doesn't care shit. The universe cares. That's why we're here. It's understandable why a computer guy, why an engineer
more than the universe, right?
would think that or would want to think that, because it would make solving problems so much easier. We have hardwired group preferences. We have genetic memory. We have culture. This is not learned stuff. It's
Culture's
so
a big one.
Embedded in us that it carries on for thousands of years. Thinking of people as interchangeable units, while it would be useful in a simulation or in an economic theorem, it strips them of their humanity. And by the way, it's one of the first steps towards any authoritarian dictatorship type system. It's one of the first steps towards Marxism
That's a pretty big point, considering that Elon would be probably considered very staunchly against that.
It's a very gross, anti-human thing to think, just to appeal to the Redditor in you. That's middle brain shit.
Dude, you gotta appreciate how Sam can weave between memes and intellectual topics.
Everybody is special. Everybody's special. Everybody's different and has their own thing. Retards know this. Geniuses understand that everybody is a unique product by and for their zeitgeist, or Zeitgeist if you want to go with the moist critical pronunciation.
Way to be niche, man.
Everybody is uniquely a product of their time and location and has their place in space and time. The smart people know this, the stupid people know this. It's people in the middle with 110 IQ, which is the worst IQ to have, who think that people can just be pushed around and moved around and changed. They can't. No hate towards Hispanics, okay?
So real quick, what he said there about how people can't just be moved around and stuff, that kind of sounds obvious if you give it just like a minute of serious thought. Because otherwise you have to suspend the belief that culture or shared values matters. And this is kind of the big problem maybe that we're beginning to see right now, where the idea of like what happens when you import a bunch of people and they don't assimilate to the values. And I just tweeted this out earlier today. Like, is part of the psyop that you destroy a country's or dissolve a country's set of values where you don't really know what the country's identity is anymore? So then when you bring in a bunch of people, there isn't necessarily even a thing to assimilate to. So like in Canada, like what does it mean to be Canadian, right? And so if you just kind of devalue or take away meaning from anything specific to what it means to be Canadian, then if you bring over a bunch of people that don't have like at least the same culture or values traditionally in Canada, but now there's not even really that anymore. So is it just this like kind of blank canvas or more blank canvas of a country that just anybody can just kind of throw in their 2 cents or cultural values, and then you have like kind of all these different people groups, and do they just isolate themselves, or do they actually know or want to commingle at all, or do they just kind of do their own things? And then like, can you have a successful country that way?
But that's why the room that I'm sitting in is covered in dust, is because the general contractor I hired used Hispanic labor. I didn't know. They laid down masonry cement. When I said I wanted polished concrete floors, masonry cement, you can't polish it. They left board marks and footprints in it.
I wonder if that's true.
And I had to pay another crew of black people, okay, shout out to Greg, to come in here with jackhammers and get this shit dumpstered out of here. I went and hired my own blacks. I went in the ghetto and hired them by hand. That's how you need to hire blacks for SpaceX. And what you get is you get lower quality construction. You get lower wages for the blue collar workers who are here and fighting. You realize that people are fucking up against the wall fighting to make ends meet? Do you understand that the American people are on the ropes right now? Your people are not
Canada's
the world.
Canada's not doing too great either.
It's the American people. That's where this shit is popping off. That's where you came to do business. The American people are your problem now, to the extent that you want people to pay attention to your opinion. And by people, I mean actual people. Not Patrick Bet-David, not Ian Miles Chong, Scott Adams, not these fucking faggots that'll walk around sucking your ass because you have money.
So one thing I will say, so as far as I've heard from the quartering, it seems, or it would appear from what I hear, that Ian Miles Chong is like a big grifter in the space in terms of like, as far as I understand what grifter means, is that you kind of just hop on the current trend. I'm not an expert on whether Ian Miles Chong is a grifter or not, but if you watch what the quartering and maybe some other people have to say about him, it might lead you to have maybe some suspicions about him. Now, in terms of he just kind of quickly makes this statement about Patrick Bet-David. I think I heard this in the little bit that I saw on the quarterings video the other day. I think he might be speaking a bit too soon on Patrick. And I watched or I listened to, not the podcast episode from today is where he talked about it. It was the one, I think it was, not today's podcast episode, but the last one. They talked about the H-1B visa thing, and he kind of like answered some criticism similar to like how Patrick's insurance company was, I guess, defined as an MLM, PHP, right? And so it was kind of good to see him respond to comments, not necessarily exactly like that, but in that kind of more criticism side of things, because that could be an area of like where I might have had questions, okay, like, or I might have been like, what's this about kind of thing. So I think he might be maybe jumping to conclusions a bit too soon on Patrick. He might be right about Ian Miles Chong. But anyway, we'll see how he continues here.
And because you made an electric car. But to the extent that you want that, you have to protect the American people. You're all about being pro-natalism and increasing the birth rate. Why is the average dude going to want to have kids when he can barely afford to live by himself and eat Domino's? Hey, why isn't China importing infinity Indians right now?
This is a really good argument.
Huge economic advantage. Why isn't China doing it? We need to do a naval blockade of China to make sure they don't get any of these amazing Indians. Every Indian that makes his way into China is a threat because China will use their genius to get one over on us. That's the biggest threat this country's facing, right? I think we need to go nuclear. I think we need to say, if China imports enough Indians, it's like diamonds. It's like nanotechnology. Indians are like nanotechnology. We have to be willing to use nuclear weapons
to stop China.
China from getting these precious Indians. That's step one.
So I did hear at least part of this, or maybe this whole part of what he's talking about in the quarterings video. This may be, at least from what I know, one of the most convincing arguments that he makes throughout the whole video, because it's fair to say that China will do whatever it takes to win, right? Like when there's this whole climate change argument, from what I hear, China's more about just getting results than doing anything with the climate change stuff, right? So like take that and the other examples that you might know of where China's just going to do what needs to be done for their success, right? And then think about that in the lens of what Sam's saying here. It's kind of hard to argue with that framing. Now, it is kind of funny the length to which he stretches the stress on the joke. It's pretty funny. It's like he goes for it and then he goes for it more and more and more. And so it really, it does stress the point in a humorous way. But think about that. It's kind of hard to argue with that because if the surface level argument for the H-1B stuff was exactly that, like just a pure talent acquisition kind of thing, then, and if they were the most, like, considered the most valuable area to recruit from, then wouldn't China do a mass recruitment of Indians? The only counter argument I could see that people might say to that is, well, China's just like really pro-Asian or racist or whatever. And it's like, you can make that argument, but is that actually a good argument, or is that just kind of like a straw man argument? Anyway.
Sounds retarded, right? Because it is. It's retarded. It's subtarded. Ever hear of a subtard? By the way, Moist Critical coined that term.
You remember that
subtard.
Oh,
competing with China in what sense? GDP? Making a number go up?
That's another good point.
Software companies that are valued more highly? Competing with China in what sense? And at what cost?
Yes.
If the cost is making America look like Calcutta, that's not worth it. That's not a price that
Some
we're
people are
willing
going to
to
be
pay.
mad at that.
People keep posting these aerial drone display videos.
So yeah, real quick. Essentially bring up the point of like winning, but at what cost? And what is winning? Define winning. And I think the quartering talked about this as well, where it's like, if winning means such a level of sacrifice that is deemed unreasonable or even like detrimental by the American people, which is the people of the country which you are living in and benefiting from, then like, is winning even worth it if that's what winning is, right? Ask yourself that. Also, like with the whole, like, is it worth importing or winning if America looks like Calcutta? I think Calcutta, I assume, is a city in India, pretty sure. This, again, like, because it's really easy for people to take this and then immediately go like, oh, well, that's just racist route. And it's like, actually think about the argument here, where it's like, it's almost like you're not allowed to talk about this topic in the context of America and like white people and stuff. But like, if Indians were to talk about it, or Asians were to talk about it, or like Africans, like, well, pick an African country, right? Because Africa's a continent. But anyway, if anybody in these other places were to talk about that kind of topic, it would probably get a free pass from like all like the liberal media. But as soon as you talk about this in an American context with what he's talking about, then it starts to get people kind of feeling uneasy or saying, oh, that's just racist or whatever. And it's like, because again, it's like this push and pull between, it's like when Denzel Washington said it's not color, it's culture. It's like, do you have the same values, right? Because the values are going to be one of the things that might make or break a country, and how well the cohesion is with people getting along. Because, like, I could agree more on certain things with some immigrant coming from some other country than with my own homegrown Canadian, whatever that means, right? Even if me and the other Canadian look alike, we might disagree completely compared to, like, my views on, like, faith with somebody that's coming from another country, right? So it's like, it's not all about, like, what do people believe, right? What do people believe, right? Especially if you go like the Christian aspect, where it's like, if all are one in Christ, right? Like, that's now getting into like a belief inner transformation conversation. Anyway, so think about that, the faith side of things.
Like a dragon. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's something that a bright high schooler could do on a smaller scale, is it not? Making drones move around in 3D space.
You'd have to probably pre-program path routes, but at the same time, you're probably just offsetting each one of them.
Boneheads who are mystified by drones in the first place. Look at this aerial drone display. It's a ballet of killer drones. How can we compete with that? That's what drones do.
Do you think he's doing that intentionally? That just happens. He just rolls with it.
Well, it's the low-hanging fruit of robotics that mystifies people. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Didn't we have more impressive shit in the 80s? Isn't this more impressive?
One. Cover.
With no pilot to compromise performance, even more unusual craft and propulsion systems have been designed and tested.
Why do we need to compete with them? Can't we just kick
So that's impressive for the 80s.
Off? When do I get some Chinese pussy? Okay, am I not a big enough media figure that the CCP, is it the CCP?
Oh, we're talking about like the,
why aren't they sending these hot spies to fuck with me? Suck my dick for blackmail. When's that gonna happen? China, I'm waiting, okay? I have 300,000 YouTube subscribers, or 250,000 probably, 200,000? How much on Hyde Wars? If you have over 100,000 Twitter followers, you should demand that a hot Chinese spy comes and sucks your dick, okay?
Oh dear.
You take video, whatever. Why is that? Am I not popular enough to get this fucking mingling? To get Bing Bing over here? Ah! A Tesla Model X and Bing Bing over here sucking me. That's my price, China. Send them over. Do we need to build giant cities that nobody lives in to compete? Do we need to turn our country into a surveillance state?
Dude.
Fucking nightmare to compete. Do we need to essentially
what does
have
winning mean, right?
Slave
Who defines what winning
compete?
is?
What type of competition are you talking about? And at what cost?
Yes.
Competing with China is competing with literal slave labor, and that's impossible to compete with.
And like
it's
tyranny,
not worth
right?
competing with. And nobody who has a real sense of what matters in life thinks anything about competing with China. We've been hearing this for 30 fucking years. As long as China has been an industrial nation, there have been headlines, The Economist. I remember this in the dentist office when I was a kid. China's looming on the horizon. We have to accept a lower quality of life immediately to compete with China. That's the thrust of every article.
Is that like the psyop the whole time?
Worker, you have to take less pay and accept more bullshit because there's a big boogeyman looming on the horizon. It's China for 30 years.
Dude.
Before that, it was Japan.
Doesn't it maybe make you think? Because like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, didn't Vivek talk about in one speech, or was it maybe like at the panel with Patrick Bet-David that they did in like 2023 or something like that, where was it Nixon and his foreign policy that ultimately led to China being able to kind of rise up from the economic situation that they were in, and then now here we are? I don't know if that's a correct summary at all, but it's like, it kind of maybe it makes you wonder about what, like, based off what Sam's saying here, like, what is the motives of why they did it? Like, is it just another example, potentially, of the U.S., like, creating further problems down the road? And then, like, okay, how do they use those problems to then push for certain other things? Like, if what he's saying is accurate, where it's like, you got to accept a lower standard of living because XYZ other country is looming, boogeyman stuff. Was that part of the plan? I don't know. I'm not on the inside, so I don't know.
It's constant. It's to keep wages suppressed. It's to make you shut up. Elon doubles down in this tweet, offering a false dichotomy. Either we have to have more legal immigration, right? Or you, the person disagreeing with it, you want America to fail for your own personal gain. What personal gain are you talking about? You want America to fail for your own personal gain. What is Elon? What are you talking about?
That kind of sounds
like
How does
anybody personally
nonsense.
The only gain
doesn't really make sense as an argument.
Is in stock prices of tech companies. That's the gain. That's where the gain is. Cui bono. That's who stands to benefit from this arrangement. This tweet, it's not first principles thinking. It's not in good faith dialogue. This is a dishonest mischaracterization. Nobody's calling you a liar. People say things in the heat of the moment that are dishonest, though. This is a dishonest mischaracterization.
This is true. Because even, like, I've done something at least similar to this, where you kind of get so, heated up or frustrated or whatever the accurate word is, where, like, you want to, like, win the argument or prove your side or have the last word or not be proven wrong, that you kind of say something in the heat of the moment that's, like, kind of abrupt and not necessarily thought through, and then they give their rebuttal, whatever, and, like, it's more just like you just don't want to give in or whatever, or give up on your side of the argument or whatever, and then after you might think about it, you might be like, you know what, and then maybe hopefully we all humble ourselves and, like, maybe they're right, and then you kind of maybe like, well, apologize if you should apologize, Of
the tens of thousands of people who are blowing up your website, this is not an own on Elon, this is not dunking on Elon. I know that you can bring the ban hammer down, and I know that you are going to be tempted to do so, that you already have with the Groypers, which, by the way, you have to undo that, man. You blanket banned people, not for saying or not for posting swastikas, but for stating their opinion on this H-1B issue. That is a complete violation of the trust that the people you wanted to like you placed in you when you said that you're for free speech.
Yeah, especially if you're like
George W. Bush, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. That's what this is. You're either agreeing with me or you're fucking an enemy. You're an enemy. It's not an argument. It's not a well-reasoned position. It's just my way or the highway. Is that what free speech is? Is that who you are?
Like, what is the First Amendment?
You can be like Ellen DeGeneres. You can be like The Rock. And you can get Ozempic, you can get breast implants, start going on The View. Whatever you want for popularity. You can do that, of course. But to the extent that you have popularity, if you keep digging this hole, it will be misplaced, and it'll be there because you're rich. What does winning actually mean? Healthy, functioning societies, they need...
So real quick, it was like kind of what he was saying there. It's almost like, why, or what is the reasons that of why people are popular now? Like, what made somebody famous like 300 years ago compared to what makes somebody famous now? Like, why are the Kardashians famous, right? Think about that compared to, like, why was, like, I'm not a historian, so I'm not really, like, from 200-300 years ago, other than somebody who is, like, of royalty or presidency or something like that, why was somebody famous in those days? Was it possibly because of great technological achievement? Like, chances are Henry Ford was famous or a well-known name because of achievement, right? And then some people might say, well, like, XYZ celebrity nowadays has achieved a lot with, these different things that they've done. But, like, what is the level of evidence or types of evidence that constitute fame and popularity nowadays compared to back then? Like, you could say, like, Henry Ford built, like, this empire of automobiles versus, like, somebody either having a reality TV show that might be based off of popularity of other factors, or, you know, especially nowadays, like, forget the Kardashians, just like people who are like TikTok famous. It's like, especially if people are just pushing degeneracy, and it's like, hey, you're famous because of that, right? Like, is the Hawk Tuah girl, which I know there's like the whole like scam thing going on right now, or whatever it is, I haven't looked into it at all, but it's like, why is she famous? Because she said something kind of surprising during like a street interview. I think that's what happened. I could be wrong on the details here, but you see what I mean, right? It's like, why are people famous? What merits fame now, right? Anyway, so Sam here.
Because you're rich. What does winning actually mean?
What is winning?
Healthy function.
And should somebody be popular just because they're rich? Right? Now, you could understand why, because like people might like rich people, want to be on their good side, or everybody might have different reasons for thinking that somebody should be famous because they're rich. But should they be famous just because they're rich?
And it'll be there because you're rich. What does winning actually mean? Healthy functioning societies, they need more than gadgets.
Yep.
They need more than Marvel, more than Goy slop. They need a shared ideology, heritage, history, beliefs and values, religion, or they collapse and they crumble. That's
common
Babel,
culture.
That's Rome. That's every empire that's been crushed because there wasn't social cohesion. Basic
there's the word, cohesion.
Principles aren't enough. Maybe they're enough to get at VC funding. Maybe they're enough to create an interesting exercise of some sort, but they're not enough to hold people together. And
because what is the ultimate extension of live and let live,
as
right?
a collection of economic units. That's what at the foundation of Marxism, that reality is just math. And thus the justification for a lot of Marxism is also what leads Silicon Valley libertarian type people to attempt to quantify the unquantifiable. Mount Rushmore, the space program, the interstate system, motion pictures, electricity, these are all things that are not quantifiable. So they're quantifiable in the sense that you can look back and you can say that they cost X amount of dollars, or that a certain amount of concrete and steel was used in their construction. But these dream projects are unquantifiable things. There's no slider in the program where you can crank up the number of Indians to 200 million and bring the American dream to fruition faster, okay? There's no data entry point where you can bump up the Indians and get Chrysler buildings popping up everywhere, more Art Deco construction. We do not need
would you even
more
get that?
bloated
Because
code bases, more tech
the cultural
gadgets,
interpretation of
more poorly run
architecture might not be the
hotels,
same.
More work ethic, okay? What we need is we need leaders willing to fight for the American people, not for corporations, not for the idea of America, but for the American people. That is the only thing that we need on the brink of collapse, on the eve of our crumbling. It needs to be something higher, a higher ideal than
What's the
tech
goal?
company market caps.
What is the goal?
If it's just that, then it's just noise. It's just not reality. Reality is the hundreds of thousands of kids who are graduating with massive college debt, hundreds of job applications. They're being looked over for people who are not us. That's not a meritocracy. That's not some idealistic, high-minded thing. It's just money. Apple and Google might win, but America will be worse. The soil that all this winning flourishes out of is salted. And that means that the next Apple, the next Google will be Chinese. Potentially the next SpaceX will be Chinese. Wouldn't that be strange? Wouldn't that be interesting if China makes it to Mars first? It would be great for humanity. Why don't we do it? Let's do it. China makes it to Mars before America. Does that sound like fun? It's just humans. They're just interchangeable economic units. Why wouldn't we want that? I think we do it. It sounds good to me. How do we define winning?
Vibes. Does he have like a spittoon, or is he just spitting on the floor?
That was Asmongold that I spit on. I killed him. I'm not dissing Asmongold. I'm just playing around. I spit on Moist Critical. I'll spit on his face. Fucking guy. Nah, we love Moist. We have a deal with Moist right now. It's for nicotine pouches. These are Moist's nicotine pouches. I call them Moist. Did you know Moist is a Yiddish word? I didn't know Moist Critical is actually Jewish. Did you know that? Crazy fact. Winning is winning, making it so that tech companies have even higher valuations. Is that winning? It's the valuation of Netflix. I figured it out. That's why we're not winning, is because Netflix stock isn't high enough. That's the only way to win.
You see the difference between capitalist and corporatist potentially, right?
And blow up my car, but it's okay because Netflix is worth $3 trillion. I want to cut my cock off and scramble my brain with fucking fluoride. I'm gonna win because Netflix is worth $3 trillion. I can't believe the dollars are this high. I can't believe we're winning this much. The dollars are this high. We have such good drones and spying technology. We're winning. That's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. At least leftoid medicine vaccine brain niggas. Bleep that out, please. I said people. At least people whose blood has been replaced with vaccines and are so far on the left, they salute Mickey Mouse. They think that they're helping people.
Dude.
If winning is just drones,
that should kind of hit hard,
aerial display, while a robot jerks me off to sample my DNA, then everything is lost. I killed a homeless person today, Chris. Did you know that? It was free speech. I said, "You fucking dirty ass bum ruining my street. I'll kill you." And then I used a speech gun to shoot a speech bullet into his speech head. I ripped an NFL cheerleader team.
Oh dear.
The guys too. I used free speech on them. Do they have male cheerleaders in the NFL?
I don't think so.
National Fag League. Look it up, please. Does the NFL have male cheerleaders? That is awesome if that's true.
I don't think it's true.
A third of the league is male cheerleaders.
What?
America is the greatest country on earth. Here's your male cheerleaders. Is everybody on fentanyl?
Are they just using them to throw at the people in
D'Angelo's? Everybody working at the mall? They're all retards. Everybody who's had their lives destroyed by Big Pharma, by the grist mill of inflation and taxation, everybody that's been betrayed by their leadership in this country, are they all retards? Is everybody who's got, and this is a lot of people, who has $400 in their bank account and is getting hit with overdraft fees and has the landlord from hell, are they all retards? You work at a sub sandwich shop. You couldn't invent PayPal. If you really believe that these people are all retards, then you have no place in the discourse going on about the future of this country. You are just a computer guy. And I don't think you really believe that. I hope to God that you don't. But if that's really what you believe, then you're not a leader. I could say fuck you. I could say take a step back and fuck your own face. But I'll say this. If you really believe that the American people are retards, which they are, we got male cheerleaders in the NFL, but if you really do not have in your heart grace and respect for the Homer Simpson, vinyl siding, economy shitbox driving retards who make your dream possible, if you have a heart, if you are a human being, then that will sting harder than telling you to go fuck yourself.
So Sam makes some pretty solid points. Like, again, I don't necessarily agree with all the points. Like, and I don't know if I quite got his analogy with the whole like shooting with the speech gun. Like, there's some sort of analogy there. Probably that he was tying to how Elon might have been using the term free speech. I kind of missed that part of the analogy of the conversation. But anyway, moving on. What he said about, like, if you really care about the people, because Elon would probably promote himself as somebody who cares a lot about the human race and humanity, right? And so, do you care even more about your own countrymen? Not just humanity, but do you care even more about your own countrymen? To the extent that you want Americans to benefit before other people do from your American business and companies, potentially, right? And it's not that other people can't benefit, but like, where's the priorities and like, what's the goal, right? And so if you like take all that Sam's saying here, yeah, it might hit home a little bit, because it's like, as I think I've been thinking about this topic, it's like, is it possible to train the citizenry, different elements, like not the entire citizenry, but it's like you can't find anyone in America that, if given a chance and with a little training, could perform at the level required to do what you want to do. Like, is the only way to get that talent from elsewhere. If people really believe that, then they probably don't think that highly of their own countrymen, right? Like, and we'll use countrymen as a general term, men and women, right? So it's worth noting. So what's it really about? What's really the motives, right?
You can do the go fuck yourself all day. I tell myself to go fuck myself. You can say that all day. Fuck you. Fuck you. I say that in the mirror when I wake up and when I put makeup on. Who gives a fuck? If you believe these people are retards and you don't have any goodwill towards them, then you're not a leader. You're just a nerd. And there's plenty of those. There's plenty of nerds who got lucky.
Yeah, what makes a good leader, right?
Magic the Gathering online exchange. I got lucky. There's no shortage of nerds who got lucky. There's this disturbing idea from the boomercon right that America is just a collection of ideas, and you bring everybody in the world, the teeming masses who are desperate for a half-gallon of milk, you bring them here and all of a sudden they're hit like lightning with this idea that makes them able to make this country stronger. This country's never been weaker, and it's never been more open to foreigners who aren't us. These two things, they're not
what makes somebody American,
they're directly related. Would Ben Shapiro say the same thing about Israel? Israel's just a collection of ideas. Would Vivek say the same thing about India? India is just a collection of ideas, really good ideas. That's why they're doing so good. Grope women on the train. That's not a glib remark, by the way. I make a lot of jokes about Indians in my stand-up act. I had an Indian woman come up to me after a show. I thought she was going to chew me out and beat my ass, ear-beating Indian style, for the jokes that I made. She said to me, "Thank you for saying that. I went there with my 13-year-old sister, and they pulled her pants down on the train."
Wow.
Is that an Indian idea? When we bring them over, does that idea suddenly vanish and they get the neural...
Okay, I wasn't going to pause this, but this is worth pausing for here. It's like, the question that people may not want to answer is like, are not all cultures of equal, we'll say, moral value, right? Because in this kind of, and again, I'm no expert on any of this stuff, but in this kind of more liberal ideology of live and let live, most people even that profess that ideology would probably believe that there's certain lines that shouldn't be crossed. But like with what we're seeing right now, we're kind of facing more and more the reality of a completely tolerant society ends up probably being very scary at some point, and we're getting more and more towards that, right? So it's like, is it possible that not all cultures are made equally in terms of they're not of all of equal value? Because like again, are there some people that would excuse certain bad behaviors as a cultural difference, right? And it's like, so what is the standard, right? And what makes somebody American? And yeah, this idea that people just kind of come over and all of a sudden just become Americanized, whatever that means, or become American. It's like, does it really work like that? Because it's like you hope that people that come over, like the classic phrase you probably hear is, oh, they just want a better life and stuff like that. And it's like, well, to be fair, probably generally speaking, that's probably a reason that applies to a lot of people that come over to America. But like, is everybody interviewed? Maybe. I don't know what the immigration process is. Like, is there a test? Like, do you have to somehow, like, in some way prove how, like, American you are in order to be seen as, like, a net positive beyond just, like, your educational skill or business skill or, like, hard skills? Like, what do you believe, right?
Neural net download of American ideas, is that how it works? The people who are mad at you right now don't view America as a collection of ideas. It's not an economic zone. I hate how there's this argument against Americans asking them what they built. If you're so great, what did you build? What did you build? Nothing significant that gets built gets built on an individualistic scale. The greatest things that humans have built cathedrals, which if you disagree with this, it's just, you're wrong. I mean, computers are pretty up there, but cathedrals are a good example of this. Cathedrals are built over hundreds of years.
Wow, I didn't know
They're built
that.
not just by the army of stone masons who build them, but by the towns who pay for it. They are the cream sitting on top of the cake. The cake is the soil. The cake is the vinyl siding dumbasses who are your customers, who are the people who pay for this shit by putting their retirement accounts in Vanguard mutual funds. They're the people who you owe a debt to.
Remember the working man.
Do the stuff that you do. These H-1B tech workers that are coming in, so many of them are just managing apps that other people built. They're maintaining code bases for stuff that was built years ago. What are they making? Social media apps that collect all your data? They're making to-do apps, dating apps. Who fucking cares, man? What did they build? Mobile phone games? It's just stuff that feeds more into consumerism. It's not actually making life better for anybody. The sentiment that Americans aren't good enough, that's one of the darker things that has happened here. I know that Vivek Ramaswamy does believe it to be the case, and for him this Twitter bomb was a mask off moment in a way that I hope it wasn't for you. But that sentiment and the Twitter deboosting, algorithm change, blanket ban, all that stuff, those are the darker things in the sense of not good for humanity, not good for the future. Running Twitter the same way your enemies did before you bought it from them.
This
is that what you wanted when you bought this thing? Is that the let it
criticism.
sink in moment? Is that what you envisioned for the global meeting grounds? And we're not talking about just making the 10% of people on the left and the 10% of people on the right mad. The middle is the Overton window. You're just talking about satisfying the Overton window. This is censorship. You're engaging in censorship pretty much right off the rip here. You just bought Twitter. You just got in with Trump. You just became a Republican. You just courted the MAGA base. That's a pretty big betrayal of the role that you have stepped in to fill, whether or not it's even true, okay? I couldn't work at SpaceX. I don't have a delusion about that. It doesn't matter because you are in charge of American companies. You are an American leader. So what matters is that that's the sentiment people are walking away with after your tweet storm. It's not helped by these Patrick Bet-David, wolf in sheep's clothing, cocksucker podcaster guys who are just up your ass because they have money. The extent to which you deserve to be a king, more importantly, or equally importantly, how posterity will look upon your works is directly related to your attitude, your benevolence towards the American people. The Cybertruck's cool, but if America crumbles, it's because we've taken on too many outsiders who don't give a shit about the country. Then the Cybertruck will be a footnote.
Yeah, so it's like, what are the reasons why people come to the country? Do they actually, do they love the country, or do they just want to benefit from it, right? And that's kind of a tough idea. That's a tough thing for people to consider. And what makes somebody love a leader or love somebody in a position like Elon's? Do they love them more for the material products that they produce, or do they love them more for like the person that they are, the ideas that they represent, the things that they do beyond just the product that they make? Because like Bill Gates is part of or founded a company or whatever he did with Microsoft. Like he's in all that stuff, lots of technology coming out of that. But I don't know that a lot of people like Bill Gates now. You know what I mean? Like the reputation's really changed over the years. So it's like, just because you've been a part of something that's made a lot of cool tech or whatever, it's like that doesn't mean that you're necessarily loved by a bunch of people, right? So like, Sam's making for the most part, like some pretty solid points. I think that he's maybe being a bit overly harsh on the Patrick Bet-David side of things. I think that what would probably be a good thing to happen is if Sam went on his show, or if Pat went on his show, and they just dialogued for like an hour or two about this stuff. Because I don't know, is Sam getting these ideas from like the tweets that Pat might have sent or posted about Elon recently, or has he been following Pat for a while and this is like the culmination of what he thinks about him based on a bunch of previous examples? So it'd be worth kind of maybe seeing that develop a bit more in a positive way.
In Wikipedia, it'll be the DeLorean. It'll be something interesting. People look back, oh, that was kind of cool. You know why?
So rewind for a second there.
About the country. Then the Cybertruck will be a footnote in a Wikipedia. It'll be the DeLorean. It'll be something interesting. People look back, oh, that was kind of cool. You know why they won't be driving it? Because they'll be driving a Neo, and China will be the first to Mars. This isn't fixed by moving the goalposts of what an American is. It would be a lot easier if an American was just an Indian with an Ivy League degree. It would make this whole problem go away instantly if that worked. If you could just wave your hand and say that an American is a Guatemalan who was born here, that's an American. We wouldn't have to have this painful conversation. It would be so easy if you could do that, if it were a computer simulation. That's Marvel movie shit. An American is whoever Doctor Strange brings through the portal to beat Thanos. The new Spider-Man is an American. It's a lesbian from Sri Lanka who just came here to start up a cupcake business. But she listens to Cold Wave. And she just came here to start up her hair dye business. She's an American. She's here for the American dream. That's not reality. That's math, that's Marxism, that's computer programmer, simulation, bullshit.
Interesting comparison when he's saying it's computer programming or computer simulation or whatever he just said, and Marxism. Like, he almost sounds like he's kind of tying the two together there, which a lot of people probably wouldn't normally. I don't know if people would say it that way normally. So Sam's kind of putting some new ideas out there.
We all know what an American is. And all these paragraph-long definitions and high-minded ideas, it's just propaganda. We know what an American is. And if you're not here to help the American people, then your usefulness to us is over with. The right wing, Republicans, conservatives, etc., they are trolls and memers and shit posters, and they have acerbic ideas, and they're also the most forgiving people. They are the most forgiving people. Anytime anybody does anything remotely based, they are absorbed by the right. Anna Kasparian talking about not feeling safe in her neighborhood. That's based, man. Anna Kasparian was red-pilled this whole time? I can't believe it. Damn. People, broadly speaking, do not expect you to be full-on 1950s racist Hank Hill, get him out guy. Get him out of here! That's not what they're looking for, okay? They're fine with the Silicon Valley tech version of the occasionally based, occasionally Neil deGrasse Tyson soy face. They love that Elon. It's this idea that Americans aren't good enough, this misunderstanding of what America is. So you're just as bad as the people you bought the website from, if this continues to be the case.
Gonna probably hit hard.
Able to listen to valid criticism. It's not from Russian bots. It's not a coordinated attack on you. It's tens of thousands of people pissed off because they think you betrayed them. I hope to God you're a leader. And the rest of you can keep watching this right now. Check it out. asmongold.com/ what's the guy's name? Moist Critical. That's the website. asmongold.com/ Moist Critical. You can now, if you're not Elon, you can jump over to the regular video and start watching. What I actually believe, I think that the U.S. economy is grinding to a halt, and that the tech bros and investors, it's like someone tweeted about this, the bubble in the Japanese economy, where Japan was faced with the decision to either start importing people or get ready for a long winter. I saw that tweet and that immediately rang true. I think that these investor bros are counting on AI to offset the loss in productivity of this dying empire. It's slowly being realized that AI is, for all intents and purposes, a glorified spell checker. I use AI all the time. I'm a pro subscriber to ChatGPT and Perplexity.ai. I have Perplexity AI as my default search engine, and it's about as good as searching forum posts was 20 years ago. It's not some revolutionary thing. It's extra-dimensional autocomplete. The words have weighting and tone and various other dimensions that are vectors, and what you get at the end of it is an article that can almost fool a computer into thinking it was written by a human. I think there's a game of musical chairs going on with money, and people are desperate for a way to keep that game of musical chairs going, even if it means fucking us over. The idea
really think
that
about that.
These tech guys want to bring in exceptional people is just not true. They're looking to hire basically slaves who can't leave their company without leaving the country, who will work for 50%. That's the other thing. They keep saying they'll work 80 hours a week, which is bullshit. Nobody works 80 hours a week. They work 20 hours a week of actual work, and the rest of the time is spent fucking around on the phone and showing the boss that they're working 80 hours a week.
So this, maybe a couple things come to mind here. So one thing I will say, because it's kind of maybe top of mind, is like, I was just thinking about this earlier. In an office, what do people do, right? So it depends on the office probably, and what the type of office is, and the company, etc. But do you ever get this vibe of just wondering, like, what do people do in an office? Because you wonder, like, with certain kinds of jobs, it's like, are you really working 8 hours a day on something? And, like, to be fair, maybe they are. Maybe a lot of people are. And maybe at some companies they're not. Maybe it depends. But, like, I've never been a secretary, so I could be completely out to lunch here. But, like, people in an office, especially if the office isn't like super busy, or if you work for like some big news company, like say there's like 500 employees working at some newspaper company, but not a newspaper anymore, or at least probably not for the most part, it's going to be mostly online. It's like, and you got some articles coming out, say you got, I don't know how many articles are released today on like the New York Times or whatever, just pick any site, New York Post, Wall Street Journal, whatever. Like, what do people do all day? Like, you write your article, and let's say it's like 1,500 words. So you write it, and maybe with the research you could argue, like, you spend all day doing that, or maybe you spend multiple days researching if you're more serious about it, and then you write it. But, like, what's the quotas? Maybe it varies from company to company, but do you get what I'm saying? It's like, is there really enough workload for this many people to be working steady, full-time? At all these different offices? Or is some of it, because like, this is a hunch, I could be completely wrong here, probably for the sake of these companies and everything, maybe I am wrong, but it's like, is it possible that a lot of this is they just, generally they want you to think that they're working, and it's like a mirage, or a like a show or something. Again, depends on the office, depends on the company, I could be wrong. But what do people do all day? So what Sam is saying here kind of hits home a bit, because it's like, is he right that most people just actually do 20 hours of hard work, and then the rest of the time is just kind of fluff? I'm not going to say that that's always true, but is it possible that it's true more often than it's not? So anyway.
Week sitting in the office, they're not on the phone and showing the boss that they're working 80 hours.
Yeah, how
a week.
often does that happen?
They're not actually working 80 hours a week. And furthermore, why should anybody have to work 80 hours a week? Why is this a race to create slaves? Why is that a good thing? Why is that a humane thing? Why is that good for humanity? How is it possible, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you're left or right, why is it a good thing to want slaves? They'll work 100 hours a week. They'll work in their sleep. They'll work 200 hours a week. They'll work infinity. They'll have no lives. That's not a good thing. If you want...
Yeah, because what does the average person want in life, and what is the average person's goals? Because you can make the argument that if you're running a company, yeah, it makes sense that you might have to work 80 plus hours a week, because that's just what is required. But should the average employee, should it be assumed or expected to work that amount? And then people say, well, I don't want to work that much, I just want to work 40. And they might say, well, okay, well, this is not the company for you. In some cases, that might be merited, right? That might be just a fact of the matter, right? But if what Sam's saying here becomes if if it were to become a generally accepted thing, because I don't know if all industries would be able to justify that, but tech probably definitely would be one of the ones that would try to justify like a standard or an average of that much work hours per week. And it's like, and again, yeah, like what's the excuse for it? It's like, oh, we want to be cutting edge, we want to, win and stuff like that. And again, what is winning, and is it worth it? And I think that the only maybe counter argument that I could see that would maybe be a bit more reasonable is we need to win and get ahead of China or these other places that could be a threat, in order that they don't get the one over or the one up or whatever on us. They don't get an edge on us. And because we don't want them to like try to come and take us over, or, like wage war and defeat us all, whatever, kill us or whatever reason people would give. It's like, I feel like the whole like threat of military intervention and us losing that military intervention is one of the other things that people might use to justify the argument of why we need to win. Like, we need to kind of be first into the space, whatever the space is, AI, whatever, dominate the space to kind of have peace through strength and security through strength, being like the most fearsome person in the arena, so nobody wants to mess with us, or if they do, we'd be able to easily win or beat them or whatever, like that there would be less threat to the citizenry. But is that really why? Or is possibly all that just like a front, like you could think about it from a couple different aspects, like how badly really do all these different countries want to have domination over one another? In some cases, you could argue it might seem pretty possible. But in other cases, it's like, is that propaganda put on us from our own countries to make us think it's a problem, to then motivate us to do certain things? Anyway.
More hours out of somebody, you have to pay them more. It's just money. They'll do it for $20,000. That's what they're saying. They're pretending like they're complimenting their diligence and their work ethic. What they're really saying is, we can hire them for cheaper. That's what that means. 80 hours a week, or pay them $100,000 more a year. It's the same thing. They're just saying you can pay these people $150,000 instead of $400,000, or $80,000 instead of $250,000. It's just money. Any system that gets set up is going to be gamed. This one is gamed by Indians who are master gamers. Pull up the Cognizant article. This is a company that was found guilty of setting a pattern and practice of discrimination against non-South Asian and non-Indian workers. That's not the intention of the program. The intention of the program is to create a meritocracy. But like Thomas Sowell said, you have to judge things on their outcomes, not their intentions. You could make a law called the everybody good, free money, everything good law, but if the end result is that quality of life goes to shit, that's what you have to judge it on. And
Represent
so
Thomas Sowell.
You can't judge it on the floral, high-minded, beautiful, humanistic language that's used to sell it. That's just propaganda. You have to judge it on the end result. Here's another one: hire workers at a fraction of the cost of American workers. Force them to work longer hours because they won't leave their job, because if they quit, they're gone from America. This is not helped by a government oversight committee or anything like that. It's just the case that when you set up a system that can be gamed, it gets gamed. That's how people work. They're looking for the path of least resistance. They're looking to maximize their benefit from the system. That's just human nature. Massive payouts over claims they discriminated against American workers in favor of foreign workers. Apple paid $25 million to the deal, which is like $25 to a regular person. Apple engaged in a pattern of citizenship status discrimination in recruitment positions. The claim that we can't find talented people here is nonsense. It's dishonest. The claim should be that we can't afford to pay talented people enough, or we don't want to. Sorry for getting overly serious here with you. At the end of the day, I think you should buy Bitcoin. There's this tendency to want powerful people or people in a leadership position. You get emotional when their every worldview doesn't line up with yours. Trump's not based enough, or Joe Rogan's too whatever. But these are the men who define our times, and I think it's important you allow them to be flawed people to some extent, but also to push back when they go nuts. But in this case, I think it's critically important. It's moist critically important. It's moist critical. This is the whole thing that Moist Critical says every time we talk to him. He put it all on the line to become the free speech guy. and to turn Twitter into the global discussion space of the world. And you don't accidentally become adored by people. He can't just say, oh, I was just building a business and then I was saying stuff online and then I guess people looked up to me. No. There are plenty of quiet billionaires. There are plenty of quiet money makers, inventors. There are plenty of quiet engineers. There are plenty of people who aren't going to the Met Gala in the Satan costume. Okay? There are plenty of people like that.
Did Elon do that?
You don't accidentally become the hope of a nation. You don't accidentally become the hope of a generation. You don't. So if he wants that, I think he can have it, and I think he deserves a shot at course correction. He's been under attack by everybody for his whole entire career. So I think he deserves that shot. If he fumbles this, then that's his legacy. I don't have any sort of committed opinion as to what's going to happen from here. I'm mostly concerned with Asmongold, as we said. Moist Critical, what games are they playing? Tall Guy, what was that game we played? Tall Man Run, that's what I'll be doing tonight. A little bit of Raid Shadow Legends, is that the game? Last War Survivor, big into that these days. I'm mostly doing that. Elon's #1 ranked Diablo 4, huge achievement. I'm #1 ranked Raid Shadow Legends. Raid what? Last Survivor? I'm #1 on that Last Survivor. Check me out on the boards there, guys, all right? Boom. Peace.
So, can you call in? Maybe that's for his live show. So that is Sam Hyde. So what do we think about that? Anyway, I think, so final concluding thoughts here. Go full screen. He raised some good points, and people, maybe this will be a test if people are willing to take things seriously. Because something that's worth admitting is that a lot of people on the right might often claim that people on the left are like hive mind, or I think anybody reasonable is probably going to admit that both sides are tribal. But are we willing to admit that us on the right might have the same tendencies, just in a different kind of direction, right? So are we willing to admit when we're wrong? Are we willing to course correct? So yeah, like, and if Elon's wrong and he's doing wrong stuff, is he willing to change? And if he actually repents, we should forgive him, right? And it's like, what are we all about? What's the goal? What do people want for America, for their own country, for their own countrymen? And what is the actual motives for why we're doing what we're doing? So hopefully Elon responds to this. I don't know if he has or if he will. But some good questions, good points raised here. Sam Hyde kind of did it sort of maybe cleverly with quite a lot of doses of humor. Maybe a couple of times he might have went a little bit too far there, but regardless, Sam Hyde's got a pretty unique way of communicating things. Super interesting, quite interesting fella. I think he probably knows a lot of stuff. Like, he's probably got like a pretty good knowledge bank, but people may not. I don't know if people. Hopefully people will still give him his due diligence and take him seriously enough on the things that he's being serious about, because it could be easy to just say, oh, like, look at this guy making all these jokes, spitting, coughing, burping, whatever, and then like use that as maybe reasoning to discount what he's saying. But like, actually take the serious parts seriously, right? And then just be willing to laugh along. It's an interesting way to present a series of arguments and a response. I don't know if I've seen something exactly like this or in this kind of style or way. It's interesting. It's interesting. So I'll leave that there. I'll probably move on to talking about some other stuff. But yeah, I wanted to. The other day I was thinking about doing a reaction to this, but it was pretty late. So we did it now. But anyway, where do we go from here? Yeah, we probably, like, this might all be. All these conversations might be kind of leading us more towards, like, what is the consequences of our policies and our decisions, and is immigration at this level and in this way a good thing? Or is it not? And are you even allowed to question it, right? And who is in control of the policy on it? Who's in control of the dialogue, right? And so hopefully we could find a solution, because it's kind of almost like, are people just kind of expected to just take it, as things get worse? Like, is it a reality that there's this assumption that, well, that's just the way it is? That's just the way it is. Things are just, bound to get worse or whatever. And it's like, really, is that where it ends? Is that what we're all about? So, like, do we believe that things could get better? Do you believe that it's possible for things to improve? And what are the steps that it would take to improve? And are we willing to do that? And in reality, because if you look at, like, the powers at B with who's controlling things, are we willing to actually step out of line in a matter of speaking in terms of dialogue? Because, like, what topics are controlled right now that you're not really allowed to talk about? And why is that? And all these conversations about immigration stuff, it seems like it always kind of at some point maybe comes down to like a talk about like racial stuff, and that's kind of misguided in a way, because like people ascribe culture maybe innately or defaultly to somebody's physical appearance, but it shouldn't be that way, because like you could have people that look very similar but are from completely different sides of the world and were raised in completely different environments. So, and like what Sam Hyde was talking about with like kind of genetic information, I'm no expert on how much of a relevant factor that is, but like at the very least, pay attention to people's like cultural background and beliefs, as well as their personal beliefs, faith, and ideas, because those are probably going to be main determining factors in how they act and behave and what they want to do. So yeah, are we bringing people to our countries that are a net positive or a net negative, right? Ask yourself that. If it is a net negative, how do you course correct that, right? Like, so how would you reform the H-1B visa system to have at the very least less manipulation that would be considered negative, right? Because you're probably never going to have a system that's perfect. So how can you make this better? And also, like, are people like Elon or whoever else might be a part of this dialogue willing to actually invest in Americans, even if it costs more, because it's their countrymen? Like, have we lost the camaraderie of we are etc. countries, people together? Like, where's like the fighting for your brother in arms in your own land versus like just wanting to make a number on a spreadsheet go up, right? Or improve your company's stock. It's like, is that what the only thing that it's about? You know what I mean? For people in this sphere of life. So it's like people need to kind of have like a desire to fight for their own brothers and sisters again, kind of thing. And like, you ever watch those old movies where like when people are, they see somebody in need and just the degree to which they feel like a gut reaction to have to help them. And even like you could think about like how people in, fire department and law enforcement on 9/11 and stuff, like the camaraderie. And it's like, are people like that anymore? Right? We could use more of that just like, we gotta help people. We gotta like, do we want to help people and like our own people as like a priority? And by our own people, let's define that as Americans or Canadians or your country's people. And let's define that as your country's people, regardless of what they look like, but the fact that they are your country's people, right? And this is the thing that I kind of think puts all the rest of the arguments to the wayside, is on the topic of belief and like faith, right? Because you could talk about all these like secular topics of like culture and race and this, that, and the other, whatever topic people bring up. But at the end of the day, My answer kind of to all this is it's like, pull up a verse here. And again, I'm not sure if I'm like reading this or understanding this in proper context, but this is just kind of the thing that comes to mind. So this is just the AI summarization here, or maybe I'll actually. So Galatians, where is it at here? Okay, where is? So we'll do NASB. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Right? So if like this is I think maybe this is the best answer to the issue. But the problem is that not everybody agrees on a biblical worldview, and not everyone is saved, right? But if all are one in Christ, all who belong to Christ, then any of the other factors really matter. Because if you're truly in Christ, if you're truly saved, then you should be like adhering to that belief system and way of life. And then everything else should be worked out from that lens. Because if you're in Christ and you're part of the body of Christ together, then like it's not about what you look like. It's not like, if anything, it's like you should look more Christ-like, right? Together, right? So that Christ is the solution. So that's basically it. It's that simple. Anyway, so thank you all for watching. I might do another stream shortly talking about other stuff. We'll see what's going on with all that crazy fog and stuff. If there's any more developments there. The other day when I was talking about it, there wasn't a whole lot of anything reporting on it beyond like some stuff you see on Twitter and 2 random sites that I found. Anyway, so until next time, this has been the Daily Event. Thank you.